بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد، يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في كلامه المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: إن الإنسان خلق هلوعا إذا مسه الشر جزوعا وإذا مسه الخير منوعا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, whenever we are faced with a negative situation in our life, our knee-jerk reaction, our immediate reaction is to ask Allah to take it away. We try to pray it away, that, oh Allah, take this sickness away from me. Oh Allah, take this boss who is giving me a hard time away from me. Put him on the other side of planet Mars. But there is another option. That other option is that we ask Allah to come in with us in this difficult situation. Oh Allah, in this hospital room, while I'm going through this chemotherapy treatment, you be my pillar of support. When we ask Allah to come in, to be our pillar of support, to strengthen us, to give us the strength to face what we are undergoing, that is an option that the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam chose, as we will find out in a minute. And when we ask Allah to take it away from us, then we are asking Allah to follow our timeline. See? But instead of asking Allah to follow our timeline and take it away from me now, how about we follow Allah's timeline? And in the interim, we know that Allah will take it away from us, whatever negative situation we are in, sooner or later. But oh Allah, in the interim, while we are undergoing this, you help me and strengthen me and give me the strength, give me the faith, give me the sabr, the patience to endure this. Why would we want to endure it and bear it with patience, whatever negative situation we are going through? If we look at Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, first case, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he did not ask Allah to prevent him from going into the fire. He he accepted whatever Allah has destined for him. And he went through the fire. And he came out of the fire. قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ. He went through the fire. Allah Azza wa Jal made the fire cool for him. And he came out of the fire unharmed. Now, what is a bigger miracle? Not going into the fire in the first place, or going through the fire and coming out unharmed? Which one is a bigger miracle? Going through the fire and coming out unharmed. When we go through these difficult situations in our life, when we go through unemployment, for example, and Allah takes care of us, we come out stronger. And we have this realization that Allah is Razzaq. If my company, if my employer was Razzaq, then that should have been the end of me when I was unemployed. But Allah took care of me. We went through the fire of unemployment. We went through the fire of sickness. And we went through the fire of low financial circumstances. We went through the fire of a rough patch in our marriage. We went through the fire of divorce, and we come out stronger. This shows to us, proves to us, that shifa is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. You have seen it with your eyes, just like Ibrahim alayhi salam saw with his own eyes how and everyone around him, all our friends, all our entire community and family, they see with their own eyes how Allah Azza wa Jal helped us and supported us. That is why sometimes this option B, which is to ask Allah to come in is better than the option A, which is to ask Allah to take it away. Moving on, Prophet number 2, Musa alayhi salam. Let's take a small snippet from his life. 2 days. What happened? He is now an adult. He is walking through the streets and he comes across someone from his own tribe, Bani Israel, fighting with an Egyptian. فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا رَجُلَيْنِ يَقْتَتِلَانِ هَذَا مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ. One was from Bani Israel and the other one was from the tribe of Fir'aun, an Egyptian. فَاسْتَغَاثَهُ الَّذِي مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ عَلَى الَّذِي مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ. The one that was from Bani Israel, from Musa alayhi salam's own tribe, he sought help from Musa alayhi salam against the Egyptian. Musa alayhi salam interjected himself in the middle of this fight to break them apart, to resolve the matter, but ended up punching the Egyptian. فَوَكَّزَهُ Musa. Quran says that Musa alayhi salam punched him. فَقَضَى عَلَيْهِ. That was the end of the Egyptian. He died. No one knows who the killer is. No one saw what happened except for that person from Bani Israel. Now, people are talking. Who killed the Egyptian? Who killed? Because this was the ruling class. Bani Israel was the slave caste. Who killed someone from the ruling caste? Who killed? No one knows. Next day, this same person from Bani Israel, same Israeli, he is fighting with another Egyptian. Then what happened? Musa alayhi salam, فَلَمَّا أَرَادَ أَن يَبْطِشَ بِالَّذِي هُوَ عَدُوٌّ لَهُمَا. Musa alayhi salam interjected himself the second day and he intended to get hold of the Egyptian. But this person from Bani Israel, he had seen what Musa had done yesterday. So he thought that Musa alayhi salam was coming after me. Because Musa alayhi salam said, إِنَّكَ لَغَوِيٌّ مُبِينٌ. Looks like you are the troublemaker because you are the one who was fighting with the Egyptian yesterday and you are the one who is fighting with the Egyptian today. Looks like the problem lies with you. But Musa alayhi salam moved forward to grab the Egyptian. فَلَمَّا أَرَادَ أَن يَبْطِشَ بِالَّذِي هُوَ عَدُوٌّ لَهُمَا. This person assumed that Musa alayhi salam is coming after me. And he saw the power of Musa. So he said, أَتُرِيدُ Ya Musa, aturidu an taqtulani kama qatalta nafsan bil ams. Do you plan to kill me like you killed the Egyptian yesterday? Now everyone knows who killed the Egyptian yesterday. Now, 2 days changed the whole life of Musa alayhi salam. Now Musa alayhi salam is forced to leave Egypt. For the lack of a better word, fugitive on the run. Homeless, penniless, without family, without a support structure, stranger in a foreign land, running for his life, most wanted man in Egypt. All of this happened in 2 days. First day, second day. Now, let's go through that again, quickly. It could have gone 1,000 different ways. Did Musa alayhi salam have to be passing that Egyptian and Israeli at the exact same moment when they were arguing? Did Musa alayhi salam have to interject himself in the middle of their argument? Did Musa alayhi salam have to throw that punch? Did that person have to die from that punch? Did Musa alayhi salam had to go past that same Israeli the next day while he was engaged in an argument with another Egyptian? Did Musa alayhi salam had to interject himself a second time? Did Musa alayhi salam did he have to move forward? And did that Israeli have to assume, did he had to assume that Musa was after him when Musa alayhi salam indeed was not after him? Musa alayhi salam was moving towards the Egyptian. فَلَمَّا أَرَادَ أَن يَبْطِشَ بِالَّذِي هُوَ عَدُوٌّ لَهُمَا. But this person incorrectly assumed that Musa is after me now. And then did this person, Israeli, did he have to say out loud so everyone can hear, Are you planning to kill me like you killed that person yesterday? See how all of this happened? Why? Why did Allah allow these circumstances? Why did Allah allow this? It happened because Allah allowed it, correct? Why? Because Musa alayhi salam has to leave Egypt. Hold on a second. Why does he have to leave Egypt? Because he eventually has to come back. Quran will, and Allah will instruct him, اذهب إلى فرعون, go towards Fir'aun. Fir'aun is the target. He is the person that Musa alayhi salam is to give da'wah to and call to the oneness of Allah. And Fir'aun is in Egypt. Why is Musa alayhi salam now leaving Egypt? Why has this whole situation been created? So Musa alayhi salam has no choice but to leave Egypt when he eventually has to come back to Egypt anyways. Because Musa alayhi salam has to go through a training phase. That training phase involves 10 years of herding a flock of sheep. مَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا رَعَى الْغَنَمِ. Musa alayhi salam is being prepared for nubuwah. He's not yet quite ready. And this training phase is a necessary part. And this training cannot take place in Egypt. It has to take place outside of Egypt. Now, the point is that even though it appeared to be all negative for Musa alayhi salam at that moment, but in the end, when we look back, hindsight is 2020, it all worked out in Musa alayhi salam's favor. Musa alayhi salam receives nubuwah, he's heading back to Egypt, and Allah Azza wa Jal grants him nubuwah. Now, what happens? Connect that with our life. Sometimes we have to go through negative circumstances, whether it's sickness or divorce, whatnot. Why? Because Allah wants to grant us something. Just like Allah Azza wa Jal intended to grant Musa alayhi salam nubuwah. But training needs to happen. Without that training, Allah will not give us that gift that He wants to give us. To be very specific, maybe Allah wants to give us more wealth, but we have kibr in our hearts. And this kibr needs to be eradicated before Allah blesses us with wealth. Because if Allah blesses us with wealth and that kibr is still in our heart, it will bring us even more pride. So Allah takes us through a severe sickness and we realize that we are nothing. Kibr is erased from our hearts. Now we are ready to receive the gift of Allah. Just like Musa alayhi salam went through his training to receive nubuwah. And moving on to the third prophet that we are going to discuss. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the stories of Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam as a lesson for us. This is abundantly clear in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. How many negative things happen in his life, one after the other, appear to be negative, seem to be negative. Him being thrown in the well, betrayed by his own brothers. ألقوه في غيابة الجب يلتقطه بعض السيارة. Is that working in his favor or is that working against him? It appears as if being thrown in the well and being betrayed by your brothers is working against him, but in reality it is working in his favor. Why? How is that? Because if he was not thrown into the well, then the passing caravan would have never picked him up and taken him to Egypt. Now he's in Egypt, being sold as a slave in the slave market of Egypt. فَشَرَوْا بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَ وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. Is it something in his favor? Being sold as a slave when he is a Nabi, his father is a Nabi, his grandfather is a Nabi, his great-grandfather is a Nabi. And he's being sold in the slave market of Egypt. But it is working in his favor. How? Because if he was not sold as a slave in the slave market of Egypt, then 𝙁𝙊𝙉𝙒 would have never bought him. 𝙁𝙊𝙉𝙒 buys him. أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. Now he's a servant in this house. Then Zulaykha tries to seduce him. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابُ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. Is this working in his favor or against him? it looks like it's working against him. A sharif, a noble person, being seduced by a woman, but it's actually working in his favor. Why? Because if this never happened, then the false accusations would have never been levied against him. Because now she cries out, "Ma jaza'u man arada bi ahlika bisu." When she sees her husband at the door, she says, "What should be the punishment of the person who has ill intentions towards your wife?" This ayah reminds me of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. How she switched the story around. And now you think, oh, such an accusation being levied against Yusuf alayhi salam. Is this working in his favor or against him? It's actually working in his favor. Why? Because if this accusation was never levied against him, he would have never ended up in prison. What? Hold on a second. Going to prison is working against him, is it not? No, it's working in his favor. Because if he never went to prison, he would have never met those two cellmates. If he never went to prison, he would have never met those two cellmates. And if he did not meet those two cellmates, he would have never been able to give the interpretation of the dream. And when he gave the interpretation of the dream to one of them who was to survive, whose life was to be spared, Yusuf alayhi salam said to him, "Udhkurni inda rabbik." You are going to be released from jail tomorrow. Remind the king, you are going to become the wine server. You are going to be very close to him. Remind him that there is an innocent person who is rotting in jail. Yusuf. He forgets. Is this working in his favor or against him? It appears as if 13 years Yusuf alayhi salam has to languish in jail. For another 13 years. Why? Because this person forgot to remind the king that there is an innocent person in jail. Is that working against him or in his favor? It looks like it's working against him, but it's actually working in his favor. Because when eventually the king sees the dream that 7 fat cows are being eaten by 7 skinny cows, Yusuf alayhi salam is in the right place at the right time to give the interpretation of the dream to the king. And the king says, "Innaka al-yawma ladayna makinun amin." From this day onward, you have a position of authority in our kingdom. And Yusuf alayhi salam, he calls his parents, long story short, وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْأَرْشِ. He asks his mother and father to sit on the throne with him. وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا. And the brothers fall into sujood. All this happened. And Yusuf alayhi salam says, هَذَا تَعْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. This is the real meaning of the dream that I had seen in my childhood. Of 11 stars, إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشَرَ كَوْكَبًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ رَأَيْتُ لِسَاجِدِينَ. Allah wanted to bring him to this level where not only his family bow down to him in sujood, but all of Egypt accepts his authority. And the whole region comes to him asking for food. But to bring him to that level, to bring him to that rank, that station that Allah wants to give him in this life, Yusuf alayhi salam has to go through all what we think as negative events in his life. In reality, hindsight is 20/20. Of course, we look back and say, well, it all worked out for him. But Yusuf alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam said, when it was happening, Inni a'lamu min Allahi ma la ta'lamun. I know regarding Allah what you do not know. The meaning of this ayah is that I know that in the end, in this life, it's going to be a net gain for me. It appears to be negative on top of negative, negative on top of negative, but in the end, what is the meaning of this ayah? Inni a'lamu min Allahi ma la ta'lamun. I know regarding Allah what you do not know. That even though it appears that the cards are stacked against me, but in the end, Allah is connecting the dots. Yudabbiru al-amra min as-sama. And Allah is working behind the scenes for me. And Allah Azza wa Jal will make it work all out. Will make it work out for me. Where I end up with a net gain. Whenever we are going through negative circumstances, we become nervous. And we say, oh, why me? Why this? Why this? Why this unemployment? Why this low financial situation? Why this rough patch in the family? What family matters? Why this divorce? Why this sickness? Why? Allah is the master planner, and Allah is taking us somewhere. Allah has our life journey planned out for us. We can't see it. No human mind could connect the dots in the life of Yusuf alayhi salam. Who was connecting the dots? Allah Azza wa Jalla. So when we go through our negative events in our life, and every person's life has negative situations and circumstances. No one is exempt from that. Coming back to Johnny Depp, you think that he had everything working in his favor? Everything was up and up. That's what the whole world thought. Who knew that he was living hell in his own house? We think looking at celebrities, oh, they have it made. Oh my gosh, look at their life. But who knows what is going through? Anyhow, the point is, whenever we are going through difficult circumstances in our life, remember Allah is connecting the dots. Allah Azza wa Jal has something better planned for us, and in the end it will turn out good for us. Please pray your sunnah.